Hello and welcome to episode 68 of the Football Retro Podcast. I'm your host, Johnny. I'm back, and today I've got Akin and Darcy. How you doing, guys?
Yeah, I'm doing all right, man. Doing all right. Yeah, you're back. Unfortunately. No, sorry, I just kind of enjoyed the hosting spot for a second there. Sorry about that.
I wanted a break from you guys. How you doing, Darcy?
Yeah, not too bad. Feels different being on the left side of midfield, as opposed to being on the right. Taking party not being here, but yeah, good to be on
Darcy, to be honest, you had that plan for like 20 minutes before. As soon as Johnny told you to sit there, you thought of it.
And you sound like the Godfather today.
Oh yeah, I don't know what's going on. Some laryngitis, whatever it is, but I feel like doing this episode.
Let me just move this.
That's how me right. But I don't think it's COVID, but
we're safe. We're safe.
You were just like yelling all day today at someone?
No.
Were you getting cranky in corporate Australia over there?
One of those things, man.
Corporate Australia. Big week of football.
Yeah.
A lot of big games, a lot of big results.
True.
I wanted to start off with
what did you want to start off with?
Barcelona.
I don't want to start off with.
Well, I know you don't. That's why I want to, just to start pissing you off from early on. So Koeman left.
Yep.
He proved how useless he was. Everyone had doubts about Xavi coming in, not having that much experience. Is he going to burn his legacy with a name?
Yeah, absolutely.
He comes in amazing form. I mean, even this morning, they had 3 penalties against them. I mean, La Liga trying to stop Barcelona from hitting form so Real Madrid can win it. That's obvious. 3 penalties against them. They still went ahead and won the game. Sorry?
Such a troll.
Before you keep going, Johnny, I've got to ask you, I was really disappointed last week that you missed out because I really wanted to hear your reaction about Real Madrid getting 3 penalties in the one match.
I'm not surprised. That's common nature here. We all know La Liga wants Real Madrid to win. Title's over. Or is it? I mean, to me it is. But do you think
right
that
there, mate? A bit too much caffeine.
Do you think it's done and dusted?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's done and dusted. I mean, to be honest, it's hard for me to say. I think it's done and dusted every league season. So,
I think they're 12 points clear. Barca have a game in hand. If they win that, they're 9 points.
7 games to go.
About 7 or 8 to go. So
21 points.
Real have
9-point difference.
Real have Sevilla to come.
Great matchup.
Important game. And then they got an easier kind of running, I think. So if they win that, they do draw a few. I think they should be safe. But then again, Carlo Ancelotti's lost a 3-0 lead at halftime in the Champions League final.
To me, Real Madrid are favourites to win both
Champions League as well.
Champions League and
Big call.
And La Liga.
Wow. Cool. Fair enough. Look,
sorry, we're talking about Barcelona here. Let's go back to what we spoke about. Xavi's impact on the team.
Yeah, we mentioned it last week as well. I think when Xavi took over, they were 9th place.
Yeah.
And then they've just kept climbing quietly at first. And now the media and us, we started to get attention to it.
Don't you think common media?
I think as well the signings of Aubameyang, Adama Traore, Ferran Torres perhaps kind of helped their attack at least because they were very toothless up front. I mean, Aguero had to unfortunately retire early. Memphis Depay was injured, and they had to rely on Martin Braithwaite and Luke De Jong. Luke De Jong did come off the bench and score the winner. He's starting to come in a bit of form, but they've had some good signings in the winter, so they're getting the wins.
I got to say, for me, what's happening with Barcelona right now, it really is a lesson about perception and how powerful perception is. Because at the beginning of the season, no one thought Barcelona were going to have, in any way, shape, or form, a successful season. But if you look at that team objectively, without that context of losing Messi and the club running out of money, there's a lot of talent still in that team, regardless of the winter transfer additions of Darcy, though those are valid. But still, Depay, De Jong, Ansu Fati, Pedri. Yeah. There's a lot of talent there. Young talent, a bit of experience as well. I'm quite impressed and a little afraid. Here we were thinking Barcelona was going to be out for a couple of years and this was going to be a bit of a sweep for Real Madrid. It doesn't look like that. I think next year, the Real Madrid have a real fight on their hands.
Like I said, to me, it's more of a statement on what the coaching can do.
Yeah.
I mean, you had Suarez and Pjanic come up and speak bad against Koeman.
True.
Messi that doesn't like conflict until he gets poked. But I feel like he'll say something along the same lines.
Koeman, by the way, is going to go back to the Dutch national team.
Good on him.
Again, so.
The Dutch won't win the World Cup tomorrow.
Is that because
after Van Gaal?
After Van Gaal?
After Van Gaal leaves, yeah.
Okay, this will be interesting because we still got 6 or 7 months left
Yeah,
until the World Cup.
Whole leaves. Yeah.
Darcy, did you want to say happy birthday to your idol?
Yeah, Roberto Carlos, my favorite player.
If you're listening,
they turned 49.
wow.
You know, we've talked about him a lot on the show.
The reason why you became a Real Madrid fan.
And in just growing up watching him play, just those free kicks, those runs down the left hand side, synonymous with the 90s. We grew up watching him play.
Yeah, most exhilarating player. One of the most exhilarating players I think we've ever watched.
A few weeks ago, he played for that pub team in England. He was on the bench as well. So that guy, I think the team won a raffle and they called him up to play that game in England.
They won a raffle.
Yeah, and they got to
which is
bring him across.
What kind of raffle was that?
Yeah.
Where you just pick any player from across the world and come in?
It's like that Simpsons when they're picking the players and then Ralph always picks the star players against Bart and Bart pick his friends.
Last time I won a raffle, I don't want to fucking meat tray. These guys were in Roberto Carlos. And speaking of England, huge game between City and Liverpool. I mean, people from around the world were talking about the quality of the game. Probably the best two teams in the world, one off at least.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think that's a fair call.
And the match lived up to the expectations of the quality, the intensity,
the excitement,
the chances, the bit of controversy.
It had everything in the game. The quality was good. Like you said, there was also controversy. There was a lot of talking points behind it. Really, really interesting. Unfortunately, though, Johnny, it was a draw. I think Liverpool's missed their chance.
What do you think of that?
Big call. I don't know. Man City, I think they'll do it. I think Liverpool might put all their eggs in the Champions League. I think Man City's squad depth will get them through the line. I reckon.
I think I speak on behalf of Fadi and I when I say I hope Liverpool don't win it. Look, Man City, in my opinion, were the better team this morning.
Could this be the rivalry, the new Arsenal Man United rivalry? Liverpool, Man City.
Man City's too plastic for that. For that type of rivalry in regards to hatred between fans.
Yeah.
Quality maybe.
Yeah.
But not between
fans
that
and
angry rivalry.
Yeah. Still looking at the quality.
And definitely not managers. I mean, they have too much respect for each other.
But looking at the quality as well, like Man City has shown now for a number of years that they have the financial power to always reload every year and sign players even when they don't really need them. I don't think Liverpool have that financial power that every year they can. If Mo Salah was to leave at the end of the season, and also or Sadio Mane, I don't think they could just replace him like that.
They don't, but Liverpool signed very well.
They do sign very well.
Jota, Luis Diaz, everyone they've been getting.
It's easier to sign very well when you're already on top and you already have momentum.
I get it, but you can always
rebuild.
You can always buy and
true, but Jota isn't Salah, so it's kind of like one or two star players go.
And Salah's not Timo Werner. On that note, let's get the show officially started.
Welcome to the Football Retro Podcast.
The word welcome, I guess, is stretching it a little when you're an Australian in a place like this today.
And welcome back. 68. Excited for next week, Darcy?
Oh, no, I'm not here for that. I'm not here for that. Fanny's been looking forward to that. So
it's not halal. It's episode 69. We get it.
Look at Darcy giggling over there.
Not my thing.
Why are you sweating at Darcy?
69 is not your thing.
Episode 69. We should do like a sexy.
What would you do related to football?
I don't know. We'll work it out. Scoring both goals. I don't know. Anyways, let's not get off track. Otherwise, the Dusty will get up and leave. We don't want that to happen.
He's already blushing over there.
Then Jasmine will get angry. We don't want Jasmine to get angry. Anyways, don't get awkward at us. It's okay. Today's episode, today's topic is cult teams. So you guys, especially you guys, this is the one that I sit back. I sort of direct the conversation, listen and appreciate. But it's cult teams. You guys take charge. You've chosen a couple of teams each. Describe why you chose these teams, what makes them cult teams, and to you, what is a cult team?
Okay, Darcy, you want to go first or should I?
You go.
Okay, well, like for me, I think like when you wanted to talk about cult teams and kind of like I think smaller clubs that don't have huge following, and clubs who have a particular story of short-lived success that like when they succeeded far and high. And then unfortunately have kind of, receded back into an average club or a smaller club. And so those stories for me are some of the more interesting ones of football. As we know, football is such an unequal sport, with, billionaires and, kind of owning the sport and controlling the big clubs, Real Madrid, Barcelona, etc. So those smaller clubs with those success stories really, to me, are so enjoyable to listen to, recap, and relive. So that's why I've picked a couple of clubs, and then Darcy picked a couple. For me, of course, I'm going to go to the Serie A.
Now, before you get there, do you have the same criteria? Is that what you sort of...
Yeah, pretty much. You probably wrapped it up in a nice, succinct way there. I think,
I am
clubs,
succinct.
clubs that, that have that success unexpectedly, and they have maybe certain players, certain coaches that have a certain style of play that gets fans watching. And I think that's why we talk about them, and that's why they live in the memory.
There's a bit of nostalgia in there as well, isn't there?
Yeah, there's nostalgia, and I think Darcy also touched on something there, where I think it's also clubs that the neutral fans were able to get behind and kind of be happy for their success. So yeah.
Nice. Okay, so what's your first club, Akram?
All right, well, look, my first club is Parma, because of the success that they had in the 90s. Retroactively, I've become a fan over looking at videos and reading articles and kind of reliving what that experience was like, because I wasn't a fan during the 90s. But I've really come to really enjoy that story. I mean, Parma did not make it into the Serie A until about the 1990. So, and they were founded in 1913. So a very long history, never making Serie A. Then,
so you said the first time they played Serie A was in 1990.
1990.
Wow, I did not know.
And then went straight from 1990 to winning the Coppa Italia the very next season against Juventus. And then, off they went with a really interesting story, building on talent after talent. We know one quite well in Federico Chiesa's father, Enrico Chiesa, who was quite an outstanding number 9. Created a great attacking striker partnership with Faustino Asprilla, Colombian.
Yes.
Very exciting kind of partnership. And from there, what astounded me is, and this is what I was referring to with Liverpool, when a club's on top, they just seem to find the talent everywhere. They seem to be able to figure it out. Because in that period of time, from Asprilla and Chiesa, you move on to Crespo, to Buffon, Cannavaro, Veron. Almeida. It is an incredible run of acquiring talent and continuing that kind of that kind of whole thing going on there. So I really enjoyed watching that story. 2 UEFA Cups, a couple more Coppa Italias. They really took it to some of the biggest clubs in Europe. So yeah, that's my spiel. What about you, Darcy? When it comes to Parma?
Oh, I remember that blue and yellow striped shirt with Parmalat at the front.
Parmalat.
You can't forget the name Parmalat. It just works well together. But I remember the times of first watching Lilian Thuram play at Parma, such a gun defender. Yeah. You have young Gigi Buffon in goals. I remember he saved in a match against Inter, saved the penalty from Ronaldo back when he was at Inter. So, just a great quality team. That it's been Crespo, Veron, Nesta Sensini was there, old school Argentinian player. Johnny might remember.
Sensini, yes, of course, defender.
And Bogossian, French player.
Dino Baggio, Crespo, Ortega.
Great players.
There. Yep.
Fantastic squad. They win the Champions League, I think, in the 90s, I remember. And they win that.
UEFA Cup.
Yeah, and they did play Champions League group stage once as well.
Oh, yeah, they made it, but then unfortunately,
they made the name in the
League.
Yeah, they didn't win it, but they did UEFA Cups where they made the name for them. They made the final.
Mario Stanic as well. They went off to Chelsea afterwards.
Yeah.
Marco Di Vaio.
Yeah, great team. They had great players. And,
Amoroso from Brazil. Dino Baggio.
I think they call him the other Baggio, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
But no, really good team.
Do they call the other Darcy?
Maybe.
A very strong team, not in the lineup, but for a team that's surprised with something I didn't know. For a team that just came to Serie A in the 90s.
Yeah.
After a long history in the lower divisions.
100%. And a very early kind of event with a corporation buying a club, because Parmalat, as it was a private company that bought out the club, started pumping money into it. Darcy, 5 points if you know what Parmalat makes.
Milk, isn't it?
He does. He knows everything.
Yeah, they're well known. Yeah,
milk and cheese.
Yeah. Dairy.
He knows everything.
Parmesan.
There you go.
But anyway, so really exciting decade for that club and for their fans. And yeah, for me, like some of the players that were there, probably the best that they've ever played in their careers. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think Veron, I understand, like Veron did move on to Lazio for a short stint before Man United, but I think this was where he performed best.
And they sold Crespo for a then world record fee as well at the time.
So what after this era, which finished in about 2001, let's say,
Yeah.
what happened to Parma after that?
Well, okay, obviously, so like in the early 2000s, they started to lose some of those talented players. Cannavaro moved on to Inter. Veron had moved on to Lazio by then. Crespo had moved on to Lazio. Lazio went and bought everyone. And they went into a dip, and it looked like they were going to go down. One like really interesting side story to that Parma club was that resurgence in the early 2000s. You had players like that, I'm sure you remember very fondly, Adrian Mutu.
Yeah.
And
before he went to Chelsea, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, before he went to Chelsea, he made his name for Parma. And Adriano.
Yeah.
You're talking about a drug squad, yeah.
So the two of them would have had a lot of fun together.
There's Maradona in there as well.
Yeah, like you're playing the great players, but like we can talk about it later. Wasted talents.
And then of course Nakata before he went to Roma as well. So they were able to reload and still have a very quality and competitive squad, even though the money had started to dwindle.
Question for you: were they ever close to winning Serie A?
Yeah, they came second, I believe, in 1998.
Okay,
I'm not really sure. I think they missed out by like the last game to Juventus or AC Milan side. Yeah,
very good. Anything else to add on Parma?
Nah, just every time I think about them, I recall the Serie A days of us watching them in the 90s, and they were up there, battling the likes of Milan, Inter Milan, Juventus. That was the golden times of Serie A.
And I think that's what, like, for me, the story is so interesting.
Now.
Because you are talking about clubs like Inter and AC Milan and Juventus that had some of the biggest superstars. And here was this small club that, like I said, was promoted in 1990. And we're able to take it to them every year.
Next club.
For me, it has to be Villarreal from La Liga. What a story for them. You just got to look back. And I honestly feel these guys do not get the credit they deserve. I mean, honestly, if this was an English club, you have clowns like Carragher and Lineker, and praising him to no end, honestly.
Wow. So I was not expecting this anger to come out.
I appreciate it, though. I appreciate it.
You know what? So do I.
No, you don't.
It's coming from a Darcy.
It had to be said. Anyway, look, this is a club that was formed in 1924 or 23, so next year's 100th anniversary. And for so long, they were in and up between the second and third division of Spanish football. And then they finally got promoted after the businessman took over 97. Fernando Ruig took over 97. They got promoted in 98.
Yeah.
Got relegated the next season.
So what kind of credit do you want to give them? They haven't won Champions League. They haven't won La Liga.
I think it's got to go back.
So did they won the Europa League for the first time last year?
This is a town.
What kind of credit do you want to give them?
This is a town of 50,000 people.
Yes.
A stadium that fits 23,500. So that's such a small town. Unexpectedly, the way they've just performed over the past 22 years since they've been in top 5 of Spanish football, it's very commendable, and it's a great sight to watch.
They do deserve a lot of praise, but I think you made a mistake there, Darcy. You went after Premier League, and that's Johnny's bread and butter. He's going to start coming after you with the questions now.
You know what? I think people are surprised when you give those numbers about the population of the town and how small a club it is, because people automatically associate Villarreal with not a huge club, but a medium to big to combat the 70 years.
Punched above their weight, I think.
Yeah.
So they got, since I think 2001, they've been La Liga mainstays. They did get relegated in 2012, but in that time, they've had, I think, 5 semi-final appearances in European competition, including that semi-final run in 2006, where Riquelme was part of that squad.
Missed the penalty, didn't he?
Yeah, against Arsenal. They made a couple of times the Europa League semi-final, UEFA Cup. They won the Europa League last year against Manchester United on penalties.
But let's talk a little bit about that era, because I believe that if that era didn't exist for Villarreal, we wouldn't be here talking about.
Yeah, and that's the Manuel Pellegrini era, the 2004, 2009. They were a great team to watch. And every time I look at the fixture list, I see Real Madrid have Villarreal coming up. Always say that's a tricky fixture. That is always a tricky fixture. They got that stadium, the Madrigal. It reminds me sort of a smaller Bombonera. It's compact,
What
steep
does it smell?
I don't know if that smelled, but like just
Oh, it's about Monera, so just
okay.
stinks
I
in
can't comment on that, but
any
but-
Boca fans. We got robbed. Different
but
story.
you know, just the it's such a compact stadium, steep stands. You know, every team that goes there struggles to play there. And apparently, I read the other day that teams that travel there, there's nowhere for them to stay because there's no hotels there.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know whether European teams stay up, but
It's such an interesting thing, like
Yeah.
because as we were talking about with Parma, their first promotion was in 1990. Villarreal wasn't until 1997, 98.
yeah.
And unlike Parma, I don't believe Villarreal had a rich private ownership back in them that led to that success, correct?
Well, they had a Spanish businessman take over in '97,
Yeah.
Fernando Ruiz, and then since then they've just been able to recruit well
Yeah.
and perform well consistently. Apart that 1 year in 2012 where they
Yeah.
got relegated. But I think what makes them cold is all that yellow jersey, all yellow,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
you call them the Yellow Submarine, which from what I read, they got the nickname from the Beatles song "Yellow
Yeah.
Submarine."
So they had people like Marco Senna, Santi
Yes.
Cazorla,
Yes,
Diego Forlan,
yeah, Forlan's part of that 2006 run.
yeah,
yeah,
Riquelme obviously behind him, Sorin left back.
Yeah.
Mm.
yeah.
A strong squad.
Very good team to watch. You know, they're good on the counter, good quality players. And like I said, every time Real play there, they'd find a tricky match. That struggle sometimes.
The Forlan Riquelme connection was good.
Yeah.
And
it
because Forlan went there from Man United, I believe. From Man United, he went to Villarreal.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
And then Riquelme was at Barca.
Barca, and
Didn't
went
work out
to
for him and went to
Went to Villarreal.
Which is why I think people gravitate towards this story, is because you are taking players that were in bigger clubs
Yeah.
that had like middling success in Man United, Barcelona, and then have come to Villarreal and really, I don't want to say like, you know, punched above their weight or played above their talent level, but more like played to their potential. You know, Forlan obviously was such a very well-rounded striker, was able to link up with his partner, his strike partner, was able to link up with Riquelme, was able to move very well, very mobile striker.
Mm.
And then obviously after Villarreal, he's gone to move on to Atletico Madrid. And, you know, he's really become a true icon of the game.
Yeah.
Riquelme, on the other hand, like Riquelme was one of those players that I think kind of like a Zidane, where the mystique around the way he played and the style of his play and how he approached the game was so intriguing, interesting, so entertaining that you couldn't help but root for him. And then he was a player who was part of that large club machine in Barcelona, but his style, his personality, his individualism couldn't fit into someone else's style, someone else's way of playing.
You have to build your teams around them.
He really do.
Because when you lose the ball, you're defending with 10, you're defending with 11.
100%. And like he's a player, the number 10, it goes to that romanticism of the position.
I had this argument on WhatsApp this morning with Boca fans who just love Riquelme, and I was just trying to give him stab them and give him shit and say I don't appreciate anyone that quits the national team 3 times, and Riquelme's played 1 World Cup only, where Messi's about to play his 5th, just as a comparison.
Yeah.
Which says a lot about his personality as well. He clashes with people.
Absolutely.
I don't know how he left Villarreal, if it was good terms, bad terms, I can't remember.
I was there for a few years. I think it was fairly good term, not as bad, I guess, as Barcelona or other clubs maybe, but
I do think it wasn't exactly in the best of terms, because there was those stories that came out that, you know, Riquelme didn't really want to train anymore, and I think that part of his negotiation on extending was he would have practice days off, and then obviously he wanted, like, you know, extra.
He did have that as well. That, you know, it was all about him. The team has to revolve around him.
But it's like I said, it's players like that are sometimes the most interesting, that you can look back on with a lot of interest and you know, fondness. He was a player that, you know, was very remarkable.
Yeah.
Darcy, how much impact does Pellegrini have on this squad?
Oh, a lot. Well, he was there for a good 5 or 6 years. You know, they had a great run. UEFA Cup semi-final 2004, Champions League semi-final 2006, runners up in La Liga in 2008. You know,
absolutely.
I just enjoyed watching him play. And then that run there, he had catapulted his career. He had to move to Malaga, to Real Madrid.
Yeah.
And then went to Malaga and then went to Man City. So
how did you forget that he went to Real Madrid?
No, he went to Real Madrid first. Before, Real then ran Real Madrid.
I think that's the thing, is like, because of, you know, the stature of players like Riquelme and Forlan, people forget that there are 2 kind of separate clubs or separate squads in that 2000 to 2010 kind of period, because, well, like Forlan left 2006, Riquelme left about 2006, 2007. Yeah, around that kind of era. So they had to
Riquelme went to Boca in 07.
They still came.
He won and won.
So then they did have to reload with players like Giuseppe Rossi, Santiago Zola, and for a club that's a middling club like that, it is really, really impressive to see that they were able to find the talent.
And yeah, after they left, like I said, they came second La Liga in 2008.
That's right.
Ahead of the Barcelona, which had Ronaldinho in his last year, had a team Henry as well and Messi. So yeah, like they've just done so well to achieve for like a small town of 50,000 people. And this week, they're a couple of days now from recording here, they've got the second leg against Bayern Munich away, which is they're taking a 1-0 lead. And after that first game, they looked dejected because they should have won that game 3 or 4-0. They had chances to win that.
Yeah.
So I think they feel that
I think it is important to know, as we are talking about this, that they did win.
They did.
Against Bayern
They
Munich.
played well too.
In the Champions League.
They took the game to them. They just sit back and hope for the best.
And then, of course, last year they did win in consecutive rounds, first against Arsenal and against Man United.
And didn't they beat Juventus?
Yes,
yes,
3-0.
to get.
And they had some great piece of business against their regional rivals, Valencia, been getting Danny Parejo and Francis Coquelin for a combined total of 10 million euros.
So once again, I think, like good on Villarreal. Like, I don't think it's a massive achievement until you hear the population of 50,000, which impacts your financial, your members' numbers.
Absolutely.
The size of your club, how much interest you have, makes it a big deal. They do really well in recruiting and scouting in South America.
Yeah.
They get Brazilians, they get Uruguayans, a lot of Argentinians to go there. And resell at a higher price. That's the idea behind.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the model that a lot of these medium clubs have to follow in order to stay afloat in today's kind of football market. If they can be successful on the field as well, that's basically a bonus.
I think if Emery can get the backing of the board and get the players he wants and get a style that he wants, he might do quite well there. I mean, he's already won the Europa League and he's already got into the quarterfinals, or almost the semi-finals now, the Champions League. So.
You mentioned Valencia. Would you consider them a cold team?
Yeah, I'd say they were. In the 90s, they had Romario playing for them. They had some good players back in the 90s. But then, for me, I remember Valencia from the early 2000s. When they had guys like
Champions League finals.
Yeah, 2 Champions League finals in a row. Hector Coupe as the coach. Guys Mendieta, the captain, and inspirational player.
Canizares.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, by the way, spoiler alert. In a couple of weeks' time, I might have a Canizares look going on.
Okay.
Just letting you guys know.
Oh, well,
we'll await that with fear.
What's this space?
Sorry to interrupt.
They were such a great side. Winning 2 La Liga titles as well.
That was before David Villa, wasn't he? Yes.
Yeah.
He was a strike. He was a strike. Covered Lopez.
Claudio Lopez was there.
Aymar came a little bit later.
Yeah, Aymar came later. They had Angulo.
2001.
Good midfield. David Albella, Ruben Baraja.
Ruben Baraja, man.
Great players.
It's a nice jersey as well, by the way.
Yeah,
it is.
The Valencia jersey,
Rufete.
Yeah, Rufete, another one. Pellegrini. Pellegrino.
He just got sacked as coach for Villas.
Oh, did he?
Last week.
Yeah, I remember him back in his defensive days. 2 La Liga titles with Benitez in 2002, 2004. And then just unfortunately, just quite a sad story in that they've just had so much financial issues with ownership changes. They have a stadium that was supposed to be built brand new. It's still only half built from 2009. That they're looking at selling it or knocking it down and selling the land.
So what's the future for Valencia Holding then?
Oh, no one knows. It's just they've got this owner from China who's just run the club to the ground. They've had coaches come and go. They've had players, recruitments hasn't been the best. Like as I mentioned, they sold 2 of their best players to their rivals, Villarreal, for only 10 million euros. They've been lingering close towards relegation for quite a few years now. They'll go on this run and then they'll survive relegation and then they'll finish mid-table. But definitely a club that didn't realize didn't continue on that success they had in the early 2000s.
Oh no. So what I was going to say, I think to go back to an era that we have missed that you mentioned was the David Villa era, and that was a real missed opportunity for them, and it's really disappointing because they had a collection of amazing talent that I guess were, a couple of them were local talents that they brought up to their ranks, but a couple of others had been brought up from other clubs when they were young. But you think about the squad that they had, just the attack alone, you had Juan Mata, David Silva, and David Villa, all in the same squad at the same time.
You're talking about players that won the World Cup, and
absolutely,
and Joaquin as well. He was dubbed the Spanish figure, great winger.
Absolutely,
and he's still going strong, by the way. But
he is 38 now, 40.
Close to 40. For Betis last year, and he's going to retire. But great team. I think in the early 2000s, and then it just poor management, recruitment and the financial issues. Yeah,
I don't know if you guys know much, but what was the Valencia before the 2000 era? I know the 90s, the 80s, 70s. Did they win anything? Were they a big club? All I know is that Kempis played for them back in the 80s, I believe, or 70s.
Romario played in the 90s.
But did they do much in the international stage, in the Spanish stage? Were they a threat? Were they going up and down different divisions? I don't know much about them. So
they were hovering around like the top 4,
okay,
top 5, 6, I think, back when I remember them. Yeah,
but that was like in the 90s, right? Like I believe going beyond that into the 80s and 70s, I think they had a fairly average pedestrian kind of history.
I mean, you think of Valencia's all cult fell in the Mestalla Stadium, and it's old and run down, but as well, like Villarreal, 50,000 capacity, steep. You remember Champions League nights. You just remember that feeling of playing there.
Yeah, and just the name, like the Mestalla, like it just brings back that nostalgic kind of memories.
Yeah,
I feel like that era, the 98 to 2004, 5, have brought us a few cold clubs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cold teams, and there's a few that we can mention as well.
But we mentioned Valencia in that time, and I think I mentioned it before. La Liga blew a great chance to promote La Liga and the competition back then. They just relied pretty much on Barcelona and Real Madrid promoting themselves. They couldn't care. Now they're trying to promote the league like crazy in China and the USA, but it's too late. So the Premier League's had 10 steps ahead and they were ahead of the game.
It's too late, but it's not too late in one, if you know what I mean. Like it's too late to compete with the Premier League at this level, but it's not too late to improve on your current product.
When you think back then, Valencia was strong, Real Madrid had the Galacticos, Barcelona had some good players. Deportivo was strong as well.
In saying that, now you've got Barca, Real Madrid, Sevilla, Atletico, Villarreal. You still have a strong product that you can improve on.
Yeah, no, I think there's an opportunity. Look, as long as you have that Real Madrid and Barcelona bringing that money and that attention with the stars, and it's why, like when Messi left, and then before that Cristiano left, we talked about how that was quite a blow for La Liga, because as long as you have the best players in and around the league like that, you are going to have an opportunity to capitalize on, to one day eventually become that Premier League level league. I think like what Darcy's referring to when it comes to that early 2000s isn't just that you had clubs that were competitive, but the amount of sheer talent that was there. I mean, you think at one point you had Riquelme, Aymar, Zidane, Figo, Ronaldinho, all at the same time playing at the very same.
That's what I'm saying. They blew that chance to promote the league.
Yeah, because there were competitive clubs. But like you said, like there's been seasons where you've seen other clubs be competitive, but at the time, the amount of talent, it clearly was the best league in the world in the early 2000s, and the talent was outstanding. And they failed to capitalize on that to promote, but also to support financially even those more middling clubs to make sure they stayed successful, like Deportivo.
Yeah, who are now in the third tier of Spanish football.
Third tier, are they?
Third tier.
There'll be a cold club from the early 2000s, wouldn't they?
Absolutely. Winning La Liga.
Roy Mackay.
Winning La Liga in 2000, Champions League appearances from that time to 2005. Always competing in the top 4. Diego Tristan, remember him?
Yeah, absolutely.
Dennis Scaloni.
Scaloni played right back.
Was Juan Carlos Valeron playing?
Valeron, Jalminia.
One of my favorite players of all time played there, Flores.
Yeah.
Oscar Flores, striker off the bench. But seeing him live was probably one of the best things I've seen.
Another ground that, Real Madrid didn't win there for like 19 years, the Riazor. Very tough to play against. And now...
What happened? Financial,
just like our clubs,
mismanagement of the club.
Spending a lot on wages and putting, players not performing, and then you get relegated, and then you can't players leave, and you can't keep up. So then they're 13 now.
Far out. And once again, that era, that 2000 to 05, I think Leeds as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like we were saying before, if there was one, like we were discussing off air, that like most of these cult clubs seem to have come from La Liga or Serie A, but we said if there was one club that is considered a cult club, and I don't know about you guys, I'd probably probably put Newcastle United in there as well.
Yep.
You know, maybe
90s.
It's a tough one because you know their size was always a lot bigger. What were you gonna say, Johnny?
Do you think, and you be able to answer this more than anyone else, that the movie goal helped them? Without taking the piss, do you think that for the non-football fan who watches a movie and sees Newcastle, like I know people that became fans of West Ham because of Green Street Hooligans.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Look, absolutely. I mean, without taking the piss, look, we actually talked about it when Newcastle was taken over because it was just a bit of a funny subject, but it is true that like in terms of a Hollywood movie with a large budget and a large marketing and promotion, there's not been many. Even Green Street Hooligans was, while like a docudrama, it wasn't promoted into like from a Hollywood perspective in order to gain a lot of attraction. Goal was quite successful for a sports movie, and for a sports movie that takes place in England, and for a sports movie that takes place in England that had no stars. It was successful for what it was.
So that helped.
Newcastle.
Sorry, Leeds.
Leeds.
So you had, from the Australian point of view, you had Viduka and Kuhl. That helped.
Jacob Burns as well.
True. Then you had Alan Smith. You had
Rio Ferdinand. Like you had absolute talent.
Lee Boyer, Jonathan Woodgate.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they did well. Semi-finalists of Champions League.
Yeah, in 2001 seasons. You know, and the way they got there, like because back then it was 2 group stages, they got through 2 tough groups. You know, and great team. But Harry Kuhl, Viduka, a lot of big following in Australia, of course, because of them.
I think like it's funny with Leeds, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, because you know I wasn't sure we were actually going to talk about Leeds just now, but Leeds kind of contradicts some of the things that we said constitutes a cult club, because some of these clubs that we've referred to, their success has been either short-lived or relatively modern. But Leeds is quite an old club that's had a lot of history of success in the past, correct?
Yes, I think the reason why we say cult is because they had sort of like a peak in popularity at that stage.
Exactly.
And because the drop was so big and so long after that.
Yeah.
I mean, they came into the Premier League last year, the year before, after I don't know how many years absence.
18-year absence.
I think that's what makes that era of Leeds
cultish.
Yes, you can see that word.
But that's exactly what I was thinking. It was not just that, like it was short-lived, and it was very, very high with a lot of talent. Like as we know, I think you would argue that Rio Ferdinand is probably the best centre back of that era for the last of that 10-year era in the Premier League. Mark Viduka and Harry Kuhl. Yes, they were Australian, so then for us as Australians, we're going to be more interested. But I think they were interesting to people in England, to neutral fans around the world, because it's not often that you get superstars come from Australia, that you get two strikers in the same club.
Yes, and the Leeds Man United rivalry highlights what you were saying before, that Leeds has been a big club for a long time.
In the past,
So that makes it all interesting.
Funny, like them, Valencia, Deportivo, we talked about them. They were that 2000, 2004, 2005, where they made those great runs in the Champions League. And then all 3 suffered from financial issues, all 3 of them.
Yeah.
A lot of times you pay for your success. Portsmouth, same thing happened. After they won the FA Cup, I saw a documentary that says the worst that could have happened to the club because the financial success.
And that was stacked with talent too.
Of winning the cup.
Urged him to invest more.
I don't know if it was the bonuses or what it was that financially broke the club. Winning the cup broke the club.
I actually think it's a point worth mentioning that, like what you're referring to in some of these clubs, suffering financial hardship was right around the global financial crisis in 2007, was right around the time where Serie A was really drastically being damaged with their reputation because of Calciopoli. So like there was such a cluster of events that occurred that hit all these average clubs, which is why 2006 onwards to 2010, 2011, 2012, such a bit of an interesting period for football, because a lot of the rich clubs and then the poor clubs, and there's not that many middle clubs doing it as well.
I want to mention one last one before we go, and it's going to be an odd one and then off the hook for you guys. But it's always surprised me that Nottingham Forest have won the handful of Champions League back in 80, 81, whenever it was.
Yeah.
Never had any success in the domestic league. It's the only club in the world, I believe, that has more European titles than domestic. And not only that, they haven't competed in the Premier League for I don't know how long. They feel like such a small club, and yet how many Champions Leagues do they have? 2?
Yeah, at least they were pretty good in the 80s. Yeah.
So they've got
70s, 80s. Yeah.
probably the same amount of Champions Leagues as someone like, I don't know, Arsenal's got 0, Tottenham's got
They're-
0.
they're-
Man
same as-
City's
How many does
got 0.
Juventus have?
Same as you too.
Man City,
There you
PSG.
go.
No?
I was about to say Juventus. Look at this.
Man City, PSG. No.
There you go. So like it's a bit of a surprise club. That's all I wanted to mention it.
Yeah.
It might not be a cult. It might be before our time.
No, but it is worth
But it's-
mentioning.
yeah,
It's a very unique oddity in football's history.
A couple of other clubs, cult clubs in Bundesliga who sadly not even the top line anymore. Werder Bremen and Schalke.
Yeah.
Huge clubs that won the
Yeah.
Werder Bremen won the Bundesliga in 2004. You know, and Schalke had that big following. You know, they're one of the massive stadium and always European competition. Now they're in the second tier. Crazy.
Leverkusen's another one from the Bundesliga. They did well.
Well, yeah, I mean, at
Early
that period
2000s.
of time, the
Mm.
Champions League final 2002, they had that, the Superstar and Michael Ballack
And
that everyone was a big
Berbatov as
fan
well.
of. Berbatov, yeah, absolutely. So, definitely a club worth mentioning.
Yeah.
Any last words before we go and see you next week at Darcy?
No, you're going to come with us. Come on, don't be
not
silly.
my thing.
All right.
But
You're not really going to
we'll make episode 7.
Nah, I love this episode. Nice to talk about these clubs, bring back the nostalgia.
Yeah.
The time we grew up watching football, and and like at Villarreal 2-1 game against Bayern Munich, big one. Can they
Big
do
week
it? I don't know.
of big week of Champions League.
You reckon they can do it?
Unfortunately, I think Bayern will have a bit too much,
Yeah,
unless Emery has a plan to somehow.
shut it
Do
down.
it,
The Simeone plan 5-5-0.
Yeah,
Bloody hell.
it works. It works.
All right, so next week, episode 69.
Yep.
Episode 70, you're back. We call it the aftertaste. On that note, guys, we'll see you next week. Bye bye.